The jungle of Quang Tri Province, Vietnam, in the summer of 1968, was a living, breathing beast. The air hung heavy with the sour tang of rotting leaves and the sweet decay of overripe fruit, sliced through by the sharp, metallic scent of gunpowder that lingered after every patrol. The canopy above was a dense tapestry of green, filtering sunlight into a dim, emerald haze that barely touched the forest floor. Vines coiled like snakes around the trunks of ancient banyans, their roots sprawling like the veins of some primordial giant. Every step squelched in the mud, every breath felt like inhaling soup, and the constant drone of cicadas drowned out all but the loudest thoughts. In this unforgiving wilderness, 16-year-old Minh Tran, a Vietnamese-American teenager and aspiring botanist, vanished without a trace. Minh was no stranger to the wild. Born in a coastal village near Hue, he'd spent his early years trailing his grandfather, a herbalist who taught him to read the jungle like a book, every leaf a page, every root a story. When his family fled to the United States in 1965, Minh carried that knowledge with him, sketching plants in a tattered notebook he called his Green Journal. By 1968, his father, a civilian contractor for the U.S. Army, had brought Minh back to Vietnam to assist with a botanical survey near the DMZ, cataloging medicinal plants for military medics. Minh, with his sharp eyes and uncanny knack for spotting rare flora, was thrilled. The jungle was his cathedral, and he worshipped it with a pencil and a magnifying glass. On July 12, 1968, Minh and his father, Bao Tran, set out with a small team into the Quang Tri wilderness, a region scarred by war but still teeming with life. Their destination was a remote valley known to locals as the Hollow, a sunken basin where banyan trees grew so thick they seemed to hold up the sky. The team's goal was to collect samples of a rare fern rumored to have anti-malarial properties. Bao, a wiry man with a perpetual frown, trusted Minh's instincts implicitly. "You see things I never will," he'd say, ruffling Minh's hair. Their guide, a grizzled ARVN soldier named Duc, carried a rifle and a superstition that the Hollow was cursed. Minh, ever the scientist, laughed it off, scribbling in his journal about the silly myths of spirits lurking in the trees. They were expected to check in by radio at 1800 hours. The call never came. By 1900 hours, the base at Camp Carroll was in a frenzy. Bao, Minh, and Duc had vanished. A patrol found their campsite abandoned, tents slashed, equipment scattered, and Minh's green journal lying open in the mud, its pages smeared with rainwater. The only clue was a single inexplicable detail, a small, hand-carved wooden talisman, shaped like a coiled snake, tucked inside the journal. It wasn't Minh's, Bao's, or Duc's. No one knew where it came from. The search began at dawn. Helicopters thrummed over the canopy, their rotors slicing through the mist. Search and rescue teams, a mix of U.S. Marines and ARVN soldiers, combed the Hollow, battling leeches, monsoon rains, and the ever-present threat of Viet Cong ambushes. Volunteers from nearby villages joined, whispering about the Hollow's reputation as a place where the trees eat men. Minh's mother, Lin, a soft-spoken seamstress who'd stayed behind in Saigon, flew to Quang Tri and joined the effort, her hands trembling as she clutched Minh's spare glasses, a relic of her son's near-sighted determination. Days turned to weeks. The jungle yielded nothing. No footprints, no blood, no bodies. The talisman baffled everyone. Locals swore it resembled charms used by a reclusive hill tribe, but no one could confirm it. By August, the search was scaled back. The war demanded resources, and the Hollow offered no answers. Lin refused to leave Quang Tri, renting a small room near the base and poring over maps, interviewing soldiers, and trekking into the jungle herself, guided only by her son's journal and a mother's desperate hope. The case grew cold, buried under the weight of war and time. Minh Tran, the boy who loved the jungle, became a ghost story whispered among soldiers and villagers alike. The years of silence. For 9 years, the mystery of Minh Tran festered. Lin aged visibly, her once vibrant eyes dulled by grief, but she never stopped searching. She learned to navigate the Hollow, memorizing its streams and banyans, and became a fixture in Quang Tri, a jungle widow, the locals called her, though Bao's fate was as unknown as Minh's. She collected rumors. Some said the team had stumbled into a Viet Cong trap, others whispered of a rogue tribe or a cursed tree that swallowed wanderers whole. Lin dismissed the myths but kept the talisman, its carved snake a haunting reminder of the day her world unraveled. In 1975, the fall of Saigon forced Lin to flee back to the U.S., her son's journal and the talisman her only keepsakes. She settled in California, where she worked odd jobs and wrote letters to anyone who might listen, veterans, botanists, even the Pentagon. The case was all but forgotten, a footnote in a war that had claimed too many. Yet Lin's persistence kept it alive, if only in her heart. She studied Min's journal obsessively, decoding his sketches of ferns and roots, convinced they held a clue. One entry stood out, a drawing of a banyan tree with a hollowed trunk, labeled the mother tree. Min had written, "It's alive. It watches." Lin couldn't shake the feeling that the tree was key. The spark of discovery. In 1977, a new chapter opened. A team of American botanists, led by Dr. Ellen Carver, arrived in Quang to try to study post-war ecological recovery. Ellen, a no-nonsense scientist with a penchant for adventure, was drawn to the hollow's untouched biodiversity. Her team included a young Vietnamese guide, Tuan, who'd grown up hearing stories of the lost boy who loved plants. On their third day, while mapping a banyan grove, Tuan spotted something odd, a rusted machete, half buried in the roots of a massive tree. Its handle was etched with the initials MT, Min Tran. Ellen's team dug deeper, uncovering a hidden hollow within the tree's roots, just large enough for a person to crawl inside. Inside was a tattered satchel containing a single vial of dried fern leaves and a faded photograph of Min and Bao, smiling in front of a helicopter. The discovery electrified Ellen. She contacted authorities, and the case was reopened. Lin, now 47, flew back to Vietnam, her hope reignited but tempered by dread. The machete answered one question. Min had been at that tree, but raised darker ones. Why was the satchel hidden? Where were Min, Bao, and Duc? And what was the significance of the snake talisman? The reinvestigation begins. The reopened case drew Captain Nguyen Van Tam, a retired ARVN officer turned park ranger, who'd been part of the original search. Tam, a meticulous man with a limp from a war injury, had never forgotten Min's case. He brought a forensic botanist, Dr. Sarah Lin, to analyze the fern leaves, which matched Min's sketches of the anti-malarial plant. Tam suspected Min had found something valuable, perhaps valuable enough to kill for. Lin, now working alongside Tam, shared her theory about the mother tree, pointing to Min's cryptic note. The team scoured the hollow, using ground-penetrating radar to search for remains, but the jungle's density and the war's lingering chaos made it a needle-in-a-haystack endeavor. As the investigation deepened, a new clue emerged. A local hunter, now elderly, claimed to have seen a boy matching Min's description in 1968, fleeing from a men with no faces near the hollow. The hunter's story was vague, tainted by years and fear, but it suggested foul play. Tam began to suspect a connection to the Hill tribe, known for their secrecy and territorial disputes. The snake talisman, he learned, was a tribal marker, used to ward off outsiders. Had Min stumbled into their domain? A haunting question. The machete, the satchel, the talisman, the pieces didn't fit neatly. Min's expertise in the jungle made his disappearance all the more baffling. He knew how to navigate, how to survive. Had he hidden the satchel to protect it? Was the mother tree a sanctuary or a trap? And why had no trace of Bao or Duc ever surfaced? Lin clung to the photograph, her son's smile frozen in time, as the jungle loomed larger than ever, a vast, indifferent witness to a mystery that refused to yield. The investigation pressed on, but the hollow seemed to mock them, its shadows deepening with each unanswered question. Min's green journal, now worn and fragile, held one final sketch, a banyan tree with a hollow that looked like a gaping mouth, and beside it, a single word in Min's handwriting, "Run." The Quang Tri jungle in 1977 was no less merciless than it had been 9 years earlier. The war had ended, but its scars lingered, bomb craters filled with stagnant water, rusted shrapnel embedded in tree trunks, and the ghosts of lost souls whispered in the wind. The hollow, with its towering banyans and suffocating humidity, felt like a place time had forgotten. The air was thick with the musky scent of wet earth and the faint, acrid tang of decaying vegetation, punctuated by the sharp cries of gibbons high in the canopy. For Lin Tran, standing at the edge of the mother tree's sprawling roots, the jungle was both a tormentor and a keeper of secrets. Her son Min's machete, unearthed just days ago, lay in her hands, its blade pitted with rust but its weight a tether to the boy she'd lost. Lin's fingers traced the etched initials MT, as she stood beside Captain Gwyn Van Tam, whose weathered face betrayed a mix of determination and unease. The discovery of the satchel, containing Min's photograph and a vial of dried fern leaves, had reignited hope, but it also cast a shadow of dread. The mother tree, its gnarled roots forming a cavernous hollow, loomed over them like a sentinel. Min's journal entry. "It's alive. It watches," echoed in Lin's mind, a cryptic warning she couldn't decipher. The snake talisman, now stored safely in Tam's rucksack, felt like a taunt from the jungle itself. The reinvestigation was a slow, grueling affair. Tam assembled a small team. Dr. Sarah Lin, the forensic botanist analyzing the fern leaves, Tuan, the young Vietnamese guide who'd found the machete, and a pair of former ARVN soldiers turned rangers, Hien and Locke, who knew the hollow's terrain better than most. Ellen Carver, the American botanist whose team had stumbled upon the discovery, stayed on, driven by a mix of scientific curiosity and guilt over disturbing what might be a grave. Lin, though not officially part of the team, was a constant presence, her quiet intensity a reminder of the stakes. The mother tree became their focal point. Its hollow, large enough for a person to crawl inside, was a natural hiding spot, but it yielded no further clues. Ground-penetrating radar, a new technology for the team, scanned the surrounding soil, revealing nothing but roots and rocks. Sarah's analysis of the fern leaves confirmed they were Cisampellos pereira, a plant with anti-malarial properties Min had been studying. But the vial was unusual. Its glass was etched with a faint, unfamiliar symbol, a spiral not unlike the snake talisman. Sarah speculated it might be a tribal marker, but no one could confirm it. Lin, clutching Min's green journal, pointed out a sketch of the fern alongside a map of the hollow. Min had marked the mother tree with a star and a note. "Found it here. Must protect." Protect what? Lin wondered. The fern, the tree, or something else entirely. She shared her theory with Tam. Min, with his botanical expertise, might have discovered something valuable enough to draw danger. Tam nodded, his eyes narrowing. "The war made men greedy," he said. "If Min found a rare plant, someone might have wanted it, or wanted him silent." The investigation took a darker turn when Tuan brought forward an elderly hunter named Ba, who claimed to have seen Min in 1968. Ba, his face creased like old leather, sat in a village hut, his hands trembling as he spoke. He'd been trapping birds in the hollow when he saw a boy, slight, with glasses, carrying a notebook, running through the trees. "He looked scared," Ba said, his voice low. "Men were chasing him. 3, maybe 4. No faces." When pressed, Ba clarified, the men wore cloth masks, common among some hill tribes to ward off spirits. They carried knives, not guns, and moved silently, like predators. Ba had hidden, too afraid to intervene, and the boy vanished into the jungle. Lin's heart sank. Min, her gentle boy who named every plant he found, running for his life? The image was unbearable. Tam pressed Ba for details, but the old man's memory was spotty, clouded by time and fear. The men with no faces suggested a tribal encounter, possibly the same group linked to the snake talisman. Tam knew of the Say Dang, a reclusive hill tribe in Quang Tri, rumored to guard their territory fiercely. During the war, they'd clashed with both Viet Cong and ARVN forces, valuing their isolation above all. Had Min and his team stumbled into their domain? A mother's burden. Lin's days were consumed by the search, but her nights were haunted by memories. She remembered Min at 12, sketching a fern in their California backyard, his glasses slipping down his nose as he muttered Latin names. She remembered his excitement when Bao announced the Vietnam trip, his belief that he could save lives with his plants. Now, standing in the hollow, Lin felt the weight of her decision to let him go. Had she failed him? The jungle seemed to mock her, its endless green hiding answers she could almost touch. Tam, sensing her despair, shared a story from his own past. During the war, he'd lost his brother in a skirmish near the DMZ. "I searched for him too," he said, his voice rough. "Found nothing but his dog tags. Sometimes, the jungle keeps what it takes." Lin nodded, but her resolve hardened. She wouldn't let Min become a ghost. She began retracing Min's map, hiking deeper into the hollow each day, her boots sinking into the mud, her eyes scanning for anything, a broken branch, a scuff mark, a sign her son had been there. A new clue. On the 10th day of the reinvestigation, Hien, one of the rangers, found something chilling. While searching a stream bed a kilometer from the mother tree, he spotted a fragment of bone, small and weathered, caught in the roots of a strangler figure. Sarah examined it under a portable microscope, her face grim. Human, she confirmed. Possibly a juvenile, based on the size. Lin's breath caught, but Sarah cautioned that it could belong to anyone. War casualties littered Quang Tri. Still, the bone was sent for analysis in Hanoi, where DNA testing, still a nascent technology, might offer answers. The bone raised new questions. If it was Min's, why was it so far from the mother tree? Had he been moved? And where were Bao and Duk? The satchel, the machete, the bone, each clue felt like a piece of a puzzle with no edges. Tam began to suspect foul play, not just an accident. The Say Dang, he theorized, might have seen Min's team as intruders, especially if they'd found a valuable plant. But why hide the satchel? And why the talisman? The jungle's whisper. As the team camped near the mother tree, the jungle seemed to close in. At night, the air was alive with sounds, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, and an eerie low hum that Tuan swore was the wind but felt like something more. Lin, sitting by the fire, opened Min's journal again. A passage caught her eye. The hollow sings at night. Follow the song to the heart. She hadn't noticed it before, but it sent a chill down her spine. Had Min heard something, seen something, that led him deeper into danger? The next morning, Ellen proposed a new approach. Use sound mapping to track unusual acoustic patterns in the hollow. During the war, she explained, scientists had used microphones to detect enemy movements in jungles. If Min's song was real, perhaps a natural phenomenon like wind through the banyans, it might point to where he'd gone. Tam agreed, and the team set up microphones around the mother tree, their wires snaking through the roots like veins. As the first recordings played back, a low, resonant hum filled the air, unlike anything Ellen had heard. Tuan paled, whispering about the spirit song the Say Dang revered. Lin, gripping the journal, felt a surge of hope and fear. Was this the song Min had followed? And if so, where had it led him? The bones analysis would take weeks, but the hum was a lead they could chase now. The team prepared to venture deeper into the hollow, guided by the eerie sound. Lin clutched the snake talisman, its carved coils cold against her palm, and whispered a prayer for her son. The jungle watched, silent and vast, as the mystery of Min Tran tightened its grip. The Quang Tri jungle seemed to tighten its grip as the investigation pushed deeper into the hollow. The air was a thick stew of humidity and the sour musk of decaying leaves, the canopy above filtering sunlight into a sickly green glow. The low, resonant hum recorded by Ellen Carver's microphones pulsed through the night, a sound that felt less like wind and more like the jungle itself breathing. Lin Tran, clutching Min's green journal, felt the weight of 9 years pressing against her chest. Each step through the mud, each rustle in the underbrush, carried the hope of finding her son, and the dread of what she might uncover. Captain Nguyen Van Tam led the team, his limp more pronounced as the terrain grew treacherous. Dr. Sarah Lin, the forensic botanist, carried a portable lab to analyze any new plant samples, while Tuan, the young guide, scanned the trees with a nervous intensity. Hien and Locke, the former ARVN Rangers, flanked the group, their rifles ready for threats, animal, human, or otherwise. Ellen, ever the scientist, monitored the sound equipment, her eyes bright with a thrill of discovery despite the grim task. The bone fragment found in the stream bed was still in Hanoi for DNA analysis, but the team couldn't wait. The hum, Min's song, was their only lead. Following the sound, the microphones traced the hum to a narrow ravine, a gash in the earth where banyan roots twisted like skeletal fingers. The sound grew louder here, vibrating through the ground, as if the hollow itself were whispering secrets. Lin pointed to a sketch in Min's journal, a ravine with a jagged line labeled, "The Heart." Min had written, "The song leads here. Danger follows." The word sent a shiver through the team, but Tam pressed forward, his flashlight cutting through the mist. At the ravine's edge, they found a hidden crevice, barely visible behind a curtain of vines. Inside was a shallow cave, its walls slick with moss and etched with faint, spiraling symbols, similar to the snake talisman and the vial's marking. Tuan whispered about Say Dang rituals, Tales of a sacred site where the tribe communed with forest spirits. Lin's heart raced. Had Min stumbled into a forbidden place? Inside the cave, they found more clues. A rusted compass, its needle stuck pointing north, and a scrap of fabric that matched the ARVN uniforms Duc had worn. Most chilling was a second talisman, identical to the first, hanging from a root like a warning. Sarah examined the cave's floor, noting disturbed soil. "Someone dug here," she said, her voice tight. Using portable shovels, the team unearthed a small bundle wrapped in decayed canvas. Inside were human remains, 2 sets, one adult, one smaller, likely a teenager. Lin's knees buckled. Tam caught her, his face grim. "We don't know yet," he said, but his tone lacked conviction. The remains were too degraded for immediate identification, but the size of the smaller skeleton matched Min's age. Sarah bagged the bones for analysis, her hands steady but her eyes haunted. Lin clutched the compass, recognizing it as Bao's, a gift she'd given him years ago. The talisman, the compass, the remains, it was all too much, yet not enough. Where was Duc? And why were the bodies hidden here? The investigation deepens. Back at camp, the team pieced together the evidence. Sarah's analysis of the cave's soil revealed traces of the same Cisampellos Pereira fern Min had been studying, suggesting he'd been collecting samples there. The spiral etchings matched Say Dang iconography, confirming the cave's cultural significance. Tam contacted a Say Dang elder, an old woman named Mai, who lived in a nearby village. Reluctantly, she shared a story. In 1968, the tribe had been protecting a sacred grove where the fern grew, believing it held spiritual power. Outsiders were forbidden, and trespassers faced the jungle's judgment. Mai's words hinted at foul play. Had Min, Bao, and Duc been caught by the Say Dang? The men with no faces Ba described could have been tribal enforcers, masked to invoke their spirits. But the talisman suggested a ritual, not a simple execution. Tam theorized that Min's discovery of the fern, a plant valuable to both medicine and tribal lore, had made him a target. The hidden satchel and buried remains pointed to an attempt to erase their presence. Lin, however, focused on Min's journal. A final entry, smudged but legible, read, "They're coming. Hid the vial. Tell Mom I'm sorry." The words broke her. Min had known he was in danger, yet he'd tried to protect his find. The apology felt like a knife, a reminder of his selflessness even in fear. Lin shared the entry with Tam, who began to suspect Duc's role. As the ARVN guide, Duc might have known about the Say Dang's territoriality. Had he led Min and Bao into a trap, intentionally or not? The DNA results arrived 2 weeks later, confirming the remains were Bao and Min. The cause of death was unclear. Fractured bones suggested a struggle, but no bullet wounds or blade marks were evident. Sarah's forensic work revealed traces of a paralytic toxin in the bones, derived from a local plant used by the Say Dang in rituals. The toxin could induce a coma-like state, mimicking death. Tam's theory darkened. Min and Bao might have been drugged, buried alive in the cave as a ritual punishment for trespassing. The horror of it left Lin reeling, but the absence of Duc's remains gnawed at her. Tam tracked down a retired ARVN soldier who'd known Duc. The man, now a fisherman in Hue, admitted Duc had been involved with black market dealings during the war, selling rare plants to smugglers. The fern, with its anti-malarial potential, would have been worth a fortune. Duc, the soldier claimed, had boasted about a big score in the hollow before vanishing. The pieces fell into place. Duc had led Min and Bao to the sacred grove, knowing the Say Dang would intervene. When the tribe attacked, Duc likely fled, leaving the others to their fate. His absence from the cave suggested he'd escaped, or been spared. A bittersweet resolution. The truth was both a balm and a wound. Lin finally knew Min's fate. Her son, driven by his love for the jungle, had stumbled into a deadly convergence of war, greed, and tradition. The Say Dang, protecting their sacred grove, had seen Min and Bao as threats, their ritual burial a twisted act of reverence. Duc, the betrayer, had vanished into the chaos of war, his fate unknown. Tam filed a report, but the Say Dang elder refused to name any culprits, and the tribe's isolation made prosecution impossible. Lin returned to the mother tree one last time, placing Min's journal and the snake talisman in the hollow. She whispered a goodbye, her voice breaking as the jungle hummed around her. The fern, now cultivated for medical use, became Min's legacy, saving lives as he'd hoped. Yet one question lingered, haunting Lin and Tam alike, the second talisman in the cave. Why leave it with the bodies? Was it a marker of guilt, a warning, or something else entirely? The jungle offered no answers, its song fading into the night. Epilogue: The Hollow's silence. Years later, the Hollow remained a place of whispers. Villagers spoke of a boy's spirit, guarding the ferns that now bore his name. Lin, back in California, kept Min's spare glasses on her nightstand, a reminder of his sharp, curious eyes. Tam retired, but he never stopped visiting the Hollow, listening for the hum that had led them to the truth. The jungle, vast and indifferent, held its secrets close, and the snake talisman spiral remained an enigma, a final, inexplicable mark of a mystery that would never fully unravel.